when we're watching the news, there's all kinds of stuff that comes across our way of events that's happening in the world. And as the news is reported, there's all kinds of journalists and experts giving us a commentary on what is happening. For Christians, however, the most important commentary, our way of understanding what's happening in the world, is what we find in the Word of God, what is God's perspective on things. With that in mind, we were told in the seminary that an astute Christian, while holding the newspaper in one hand, is holding the Bible in the other hand, so he can shed the light of the Word of God on contemporary affairs and see everything from God's perspective. Now, with that in mind, I'd like to talk about an article that I read this week. It was entitled "The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness." And there'll be a link to the article in the next newsletter. The article largely blames smartphones and excessive use of the internet for what's happening in the life of our young people. Recent research shows that the average age that a child gets to work on an iPad is about 2 years of age, and they're probably still in diapers at that age. Speaking about the later effects on adolescents, who could be consuming anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of smartphones and internet every day, the article says, quote, "The brain is more vulnerable to the effects of sustained stressors, which can tilt the adolescent into mental disorders such as generalized anxiety disorder, depression, eating disorders, and substance abuse." And other symptoms that are mentioned in the article are that of irritability, insecurity, insomnia, which is a sleep disorder, and dysphoria. And this is where people get confused about their gender and their sexuality, etc. This overuse of smart devices and internet is compared to digital crack cocaine. So it's that addictive, it can really get to our minds. The article, however, doesn't come up with any great remedies for this other than to try to counsel for a cutting back on the use of smart devices and the internet. Now, if we look at today's readings, and especially the Gospel, we have a wonderful solution to the anxiety experienced by young people, and indeed the anxiety that we can all experience ourselves. And the solution is very simple. That is, we believe and trust in Jesus. In the Gospel that we just heard, there was panic on the boat. They were out on the Sea of Galilee. There was a gale blowing, and there was waves threatening to sink the boat, and they were all in danger of drowning. The disciples wake up Jesus, and they say to him, "Master, do you not care? We are going down." And Jesus immediately sorts out the problem. He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Quiet now, be calm." And the wind dropped and all was calm again. And Jesus can do this unlike any other human person, because he is the second person of the Trinity. He is God from God, light from light, true God from true God. And what's more, he is our good shepherd. And the next thing that happens is that Jesus rebukes his disciples for their lack of faith. He said, "Why are you so frightened? How is it that you have no faith?" So faith and belief in Jesus is the solution for anything that could be coming in our direction. Tommy Rose, whose funeral I did today, his favourite prayer was, "Sacred Heart of Jesus, I place all my trust in thee." We put all of our trust in God, in Jesus, and in their love for us. So a big question that arises, how can we come to believe more in Jesus? Well, in the newsletter, I have this endearing quote from St. Mother Teresa. She's someone who would have had genuine cause for anxiety. she was managing 5,000 sisters in her community and was responsible for tens of thousands of poor people, those in orphanages, lepers, in homeless shelters, in schools, and being fed in soup kitchens, etc., etc. What's more, she was going all over the world and she was picking up Nobel Prizes and she was doing talks and she was meeting heads of state, etc., etc. And she was asked about what her secret was, what empowered her to do all of this. And the quote says, "My secret is simple, I pray." So that was the entire foundation of her activity, of her life, was the power that she got from prayer. And Mother Teresa's prayer wasn't very complicated. She did a holy hour every day with Jesus present in the tabernacle, and she also said the rosary as well. The rosary is the primary way that connects us to Jesus. It brings us to a familiarity with him, like the people who lived with him for the 3 years of his public ministry, as we hear about in the Gospels every time we come to Mass. I can remember once a school Mass, a school visit at least, and I was talking to the children about the importance of prayer, and I was talking to one child, and I asked how long they had for their prayers every day. And they were very honest. They said about 2 minutes. And then I said, how long do you spend playing games on the internet, on your computer and all the rest of it? And again, they were very honest. They said about 3 hours. And I asked them, does this 3 hours you spend playing games and stuff help you to know God better and get to heaven? And again, they were very forthright. They said it doesn't. And does that 2 minutes that you spend in prayer help you to know God and come closer to heaven? And they said, yes, it does. And my suggestion was that they divide their time equally between the two, that they could spend an hour and a half with their prayers and then spend another hour and a half playing games or whatever it is on the computer. We can all imagine how holier our individual lives would be and how holier the world would be if we could divide time equally between prayer and all the entertainment stuff that we see on the big screen or indeed the small screen. So to sum up what I'd like to leave you with, today's gospel teaches us that true security and help with anxiety is to be found in trusting in Jesus and his loving presence in our life. The necessary relationship with Jesus for this trust is found by a commitment to prayer.